The Almost Perfect Podcast. Welcome to the Almost Perfect Podcast, a celebration of fuck-ups, failures, and falling flat on your face. This is a podcast that believes you can learn from experience, but that experience doesn't have to be your own. Ha, I'm Bob Perfect, and I'm a functional fuck-up. Let's learn from somebody else's mistakes. And today we're learning from Hannah Shone. Now, Hannah is an illustrator and designer who has contributed to many dope fucking projects, like from working with Dip Street to recently getting invited to the Levi's House of Strauss to come work on a jacket there, to designing Diamond Thug's album, like the entire thing, just all of it, and then also designing the cover for Blouse's album, and those are both their debut albums. So we get into what it's like to have that pressure on you, man, as a designer, to know that when like these things are going to be seen. This isn't like you're making something for your friend's band over there and, you know, like 50 people might buy it at the merch stand at the back. Nah, these are things that people are looking forward to. These are artists that have already got names for themselves and already developed who they are. So to create artwork for them, I figured would be fairly nerve-wracking. And you're going to find out for yourself whether or not it was for Hannah. Just a little bit. Yeah, this is the Almost Perfect Podcast. I am Bob Perfect. And this is a podcast basically where I chat to creative people in South Africa, from South Africa, loosely associated with South Africa. And yeah, varying degrees of making it on the way, nowhere fucking near, you know, just on various paths or various stages of the journey of this career thing, of the success thing, of the failure thing, of all those things. So yeah, man, we get, like, you'll look through and you'll see there's a lot of interesting guests, and I wanted, like, I'm saying all of this because I just want to bring up Mbali Ntuli was a guest recently, and I really recommend you go listen to that episode, because even though she didn't win the DA internal elections there, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't think it would happen because we all know what the DA is. I really like Mbali, like, a lot. Our conversation was, I enjoyed it. I really had a great time, and it's not often that I would ever be like, yeah, no, that politician's rad, but I think Mbali's rad, and it's disappointing to see the way things have gone with the DA, but that's who the DA are. It's what they've always been, and while they've tried to put a veneer over it, and there are people like Mbali in the party who are trying to, I don't know, push what they think the true ideals of liberalism are, I guess, through. It's unfortunate that there's just this classical liberal fucking wing that's taken over there, and it's pathetic, and they're fucking losers. And if you're into that shit, you can just bounce from this podcast, because, yeah, I'm sorry, like, not the vibe. This isn't the place for you. But yeah, other than that, what's been going on? America's still America. Like, I don't actually know what's going on there anymore. I've tuned the fuck out. Like, whatever. Are they still counting votes? They're probably still counting votes, aren't they? I don't know. Hopefully, if you're in America right now, everything's cool for you. Seems like shit hasn't popped off yet. So that's good. That's good. Go team. Go team peace. Big ups to all of you who are not killing each other at the moment, not popping off on that civil war. I see there's like a new social media thing. I don't know, like parlance or fucking whatever. Cool, man. Like, things are happening, you know, things are happening. And there's just me chilling at home playing games. Mo Jack LaHoka and I have been playing a lot of Apex Predator. Apex Predator? Fuck, that's my wrestling history coming through there with Randy Orton. The Apex Predator. He's a Viper, in case you didn't know that. But no, we've been playing Apex Legends, and Mo's been streaming that a little bit. So go check out on Twitter, Mo Does Tech, I think that's what it's called. Or just look for Mojack the Hooker on Twitch, and you can occasionally watch us jamming games, or you can just watch him jamming games. But that's been a lot of fun. It's been really cool to actually get to kind of hang out with someone at a distance. It's been really rad. I've also made some new friends. I'm part of like a crew there, or a team, or a club. They're called clubs. I got invited to a club with some people that I met playing games online. So I feel like I'm 16 again, which is kind of weird, but it's also, the games are just so much more like hectic than before. So I've been having fun. I've been doing that. I've also been working on various different things. Some things you've heard little snippets about, like the Super Delinquent Squad. I think I mentioned last week that we have done table read for that. And what we're going to do with that table read is we recorded it, we did it online. I'm not going to tell you who was in it, but everyone that is in it has been on this podcast. So we got the pilot episode. Basically, we did all the voice work for that, just like a basic kind of vibe, like we did it via Zoom, and then that's all going to go over an animatic. And then animatic's kind of like, if you see if you've seen the very first episode of South Park, episode in inverted commas, but the thing with Jesus and Santa, it's like really badly done. That's kind of the vibe. And then with that thing, we're going to try and then get funding to get a pilot made. It's quite a long fucking process if you want to get a cartoon made independently. I mean, it's not going to be independently. Someone's going to give us money and we're going to sell the fuck out. But yeah, that's the thing that's been happening. So that's been fun. That's been a cool project. I've also, just been doing some other various things to put paper in the pockets. And then Neil Green and I have started the Strongly Disagree Strongly podcast again. It's only had one episode before, but it's the spiritual successor to the Live from the Winston podcast. And if you ever heard that, Neil and I sometimes get a little heated. Sometimes we say some outlandish shit, and sometimes we're quite reasonable. So if you want to hear, wait for it, guys. This is a groundbreaking premise, but two men arguing with each other about current affairs and pop culture on a podcast. I know. Never been done before, but we're doing it. And you can go listen to that on some podcasting platforms. I haven't got the distribution everywhere yet. So I know Spotify has it. I fucking don't know anywhere else. But it is on our social media. So our social media, the Almost Perfect social media. Speaking of which, this is a listener-supported podcast. Oh yeah, by the way, you're welcome to just skip ahead probably about 3 minutes. Because I'm about to get into... This is a listener-supported podcast, which means that it is brought to you by you. And that means it is brought to you by patreon.com/almostperfect. Now, this is a way that you can give back to creators like me, people who put out content, as they call it, or media, as I call it, out there for people to consume and enjoy and get value from. But it's pretty hard to get money out of this thing. I'm not going to lie. Like, there aren't that many people that listen to it. Advertisers are going to give me like 3 fucking rand per episode. That's not really going to help me much. But if you feel like you get $1 worth of like value out of this every month, or even just out of this episode, patreon.com/almostperfect is where you can go to give back. If you feel like you get more value of that, there are other tiers, there are other levels, there are vibes all up and down there. And the cool thing that I need to tell you is there are going to be stickers coming very, very soon. That's coming soon. Then we've got ashtrays and shooter glasses, which I'm just not so soon, but soonish. Like soon enough, you'll see those. So those are coming through. And if you're a patron, those things come to you. Like your address is there, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna send this or this gal or this person something. I'm just gonna send there. There we go. Sometimes the South African post office actually does deliver, and then you get a nice little surprise. So patreon.com/almostperfect, and there is also a tier there called the titular titles tier. Now this is a $10 tier. It's the highest tier there. I don't want to be like, too fancy. $10 feels like quite a bit. What's that? Like 40 Rand an episode, basically, if I do put them out every week. And there's also newsletter stuff. There's recommendations. Trust me, go check that stuff out. But there's a titular titles tier, and this is a tier where you get to be a part of the cast and crew. You get to pick your title on this podcast. You get to get a shout out every single week right here on the Almost Perfect podcast. The award overlooked Almost Perfect podcast. And it won an award. It won an award. Durban Creative Award winner. And I'm not going to get into the other vibes on this episode. Maybe another time. I feel like I've been rambling a little bit. So, titular titles tier. Here are the shout outs. We have got the Chief Sales Officer of Subtle Heresies in the Greater Oberberg region, and that is Rousseau. We've got Karan Slamman, who is the Almost Perfect Youth Group leader. We've got King Julian, and then His Excellency President for Life Field Marshal Stephen Olafia, VC, DSO, MC, Lord of all the Beasts of the Earth, and Fisters of the Seas, and Conqueror of the British Empire and Africa in general, and certain parts of KwaZulu-Natal in particular, or something slightly less pretentious, like Executive Producer. And then, lastly, we have got Vashendra Naidu, who is my spiritual advisor. So thank you to everyone there. Big thanks to all of you for continually contributing to this podcast, because it's fucking helpful. I'll be honest with you there. And I would appreciate it if, even if, you don't have to be a $10 person. You can just think about it, man. Like, if you get $1 worth of value out of this thing a month, 4 Rand a week. It's less than a beer, bro. Like a craft beer. You're telling me those podcasts isn't worth more than 1 craft beer a month to you? Yeah, I fucking guilt tripped you, didn't I? Now, have one less beer. Go to patreon.com/almostperfect. I had to do it. It's just, I need to fucking get this shit up there. I had goals set at the beginning of the year. I'm not meeting those goals. So yeah, Twitter as well, Instagram as well, Facebook as well. Please go like those things and help me finish this year on a fucking high. Okay? That's what we're doing. Cool. I've got a list in front of me of things I wanted to say. Okay, well, the most important thing. Jesus, I need to actually take a look at the time here. Okay, that's not too bad. We're doing okay. 12 minutes. Feel like that's alright. Mark Maron usually goes for like 20. I know I'm not Mark Maron. Hence why you're not getting 20 minutes. Okay, you might. So yeah, this weekend is not our 6-year anniversary for me and my girlfriend, but it is the weekend we're going to celebrate it. It's actually the following weekend that we will be celebrating 6 years of being together. But this weekend we are going away, and we're going down to Mantis and Moon. And for 2 nights we're going to stay in the Glass Tree House, and for another night we're going to stay in a cabin, because I'm a fucking rookie. Like, straight up, I pulled the most, like, it's not really a me move, but like, you would imagine it's something I would do, and then I did it, so I guess it is a me move, but it's usually not. I'm usually on top of things. But yeah, I booked for the wrong days. Somehow I was looking at the dates on my computer, and I think I was looking at the date for last month, and then I booked like the weekend that I saw, so I think it was like the 13th to the 15th, and I think that was correct. Like would have been the correct days if we were going last month, but it was not the correct days for this month, and so I booked us the Sunday and Monday, which is not ideal, a little awkward, and yeah, threw a bit of a spanner in the works. We did try to shift them, and they're like, hey, Soz, like, Glass Treehouse isn't available on the Friday and Saturday anymore. So we're like, you know what, we'll keep it. We'll just add an extra night on, and yeah, we're going away for our 6-year anniversary. We're going away for 3 nights, and it's going to be quite nice. I'm looking forward to it. Apparently it's going to be raining and stuff, but I'm not even too stressed about that. I'm just going to be chilling with my girlfriend and celebrating 6 years of so fucking much. Like, just, it's been we are completely different people than who we met, and it's pretty rad that we still love each other, you know? Like, we love the people we become, so I'm pretty into that, and that's a cool vibe. Who the fuck am I? I talk like such a weirdo sometimes, but yeah, I genuinely am reflective as fuck about the whole thing, because I never saw that happening really. That wasn't in my future, you know. When I was younger, I always imagined, because it's what happened. Also, like when I was younger, I didn't really imagine like having girlfriends, because that didn't happen. And then it started to, and I was like, I just got like, it would be a couple months, but I also kind of went for girls that I knew were leaving, like, or weren't available really, or yeah, like I put myself in complicated situations intentionally to avoid the potential for long-term relationships. And that's kind of what happened here, actually. Paige moved to Australia shortly after we started dating. Well, hooking up, dating, whatever. We went on dates, and then she went overseas, and then she came back, and I was like, yo, want to be my girlfriend? And she was like, yeah, that sounds dope. And little did she know, it would be the dopest fucking thing ever. And yeah, we've had a good time since. We've also had some bad times. There's definitely been some bad times, but we've had some fucking good times since, and I'm looking forward to having many, many more. Oh yeah, I guess I can also mention that next week we've got Pomlani Pakali coming through. And by coming through, I mean I'm going to chat to him via the internet, and I'm going to chat to him using a new program, hopefully, because you'll notice in this episode there's a couple dropouts from my side, and also my voice just sounds weird as fuck because I did it on my laptop. Like, we recorded this on my laptop because, as you all know, all of you, my computer wasn't working, and so I had to do stuff on there, and now the computer is working, and everything sounds better and cool and rad, but there's just my voice doesn't sound so lekker, and I'm going to try and use a new program to do these things going forward. Hopefully it works. Their sales pitch sounds really good, so I'm going to give them a try, and you'll hear the results next week with Pumlani Pakoli. I've actually got Born Freeloaders. I'm going to read it this weekend, and then I'm going to give it away to a fucking patron over on patreon.com/almostperfect. Yeah, got you right at the fucking end with it. And that's everything I need to tell you before the Almost Perfect podcast with Hannah Shone. So how are you living, Hannah?
I feel like that's a loaded question. Stay curious. Keep asking questions. Thank you. I'm living well. I'm living okay. Yeah.
Man, how's life been treating you over the last couple of I'll say weeks. We won't go too far for now. But yeah,
thank you, because actually, this whole year has just been one never-ending day, isn't it? The last couple of weeks, let's see. I mean, it's been Scorpio season, so you know.
I don't, but cool.
It's just, if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't, you know. But the last couple of weeks have been pretty good. I've done some pretty cool stuff work-wise, and I've slowly started seeing some of my inner circle again. And yeah, so it's been pretty good. Not much to complain about.
Yeah, I saw you were at the Levi's house thing. I'm not too sure what it's called, but I saw you did some work with Levi's. Oh yeah, how was that? How did that come about?
That was really, really cool. It was such an amazing day. So my friend Angela, she is the culture and network manager at Levi's House of Strauss. And she got hold of me one day and asked if I wanted to go through to the space and customize a garment with Levi's House of Strauss. So that whole space is not quite like the retail space that we kind of know of Levi's. It's very much just a hub for creative people to come together and use the incredibly insane resources that Levi's has in that space to customize and just like put together really interesting and one-off garments kind of through them, and like sort of embodying how they connect with the creative industry.
Have you worked with fashion much before? Because I know you're quite like a fashionable person, but have you actually done design work and stuff like that? Or are you more on the generally just the graphic side?
So generally more on the graphic side. I do textile design is something that fascinates me, and I would like to get into that at some point. But I did do a collaboration with Dip Street in 2019, last year.
Okay.
So the collection was released last year, but it had been going on for about 2 years, back and forth with myself and Tusa Mamba, who owns Dip Street. And yeah, so I just was essentially commissioned to do some illustrations, and then him and his team kind of decided how that would work on actual pieces, and it came together really nicely. So that was my first real taste into doing stuff in the fashion industry, or like in a fashionable space. But for the most part, I'm very much design and pen to paper kind of gal.
I take it you probably started out doodling as a young girl?
Yeah, I did. I think I showed some kind of aptitude when I was young. And then, like that eternal kind of struggle with folks who are like, oh, they showed so much promise when they were younger, and now they're like very mentally ill. So that's kind of what I relate to. Them. But yeah, I think like in primary school and in high school, I was very into like painting. In high school, particularly, I did visual art. So, but the kind of the emphasis there was just like recreate the still life as best as you can, and if it's not good, then you don't get a good mark, kind of thing. And only really started.
That's definitely not your style these days at all.
Not at all. In fact, don't ask me to do something realistic because I can't. So yeah, that was an interesting kind of starting point for me, but I didn't really love it. And I think that shows in the work I do now, and really only started doodling in inverted commas when I was in varsity. And it wasn't actually for specific projects. It was just because I would fuck around in lectures a lot. So
that's the thing. Like I find a lot of my artistic friends, that's the thing. Like, it's just when their mind's going in other places, when, they're in the back of the class, like I know from school and stuff, you would always have the kids who would just be drawing in the back whilst the teacher's busy talking. And those would land up becoming great artists a lot of the time.
For sure. I think there's great merit in being classically trained and having an eye for that. But it is also just fun drawing random shit. Like, I think that's kind of why I don't really want to, explore the more realistic side of illustration and just art in general, because I'm just not particularly good at it. Certainly not now. I think I've lost those skills. But also just, like you said, I just like drawing whatever's going on in my head, and it's not always, from the real world, so to speak.
Yeah, your stuff definitely has that quality of otherworldliness and just being a fun place to live. But there's some darkness there as well. But I find your sense of humor comes through in your work quite a lot. Like I get a glimpse of it on Twitter, but then you also see it in your work, and that's really fun.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I definitely get what you're saying with the dark. There is a bit of morbidity there, I think, a little bit, but
a little bit.
I mean, maybe that's just also my interpretation of it, though. I think it's great that people just think different things of the things I put out there. But yeah, I think I mostly have a lot of fun with coming up with titles for my pieces, specifically for like the exhibitions that I participated in. And it's often only been because I'll arrive and they're like putting the work up already, and then they're like, what's the name of the piece? We have to put it on the system so we can print the price tag. And I literally was on the spot think like, fuck, okay, I'm aware of my shortcomings. That's the name of this piece. Do with that what you will. Like literally and I think that's kind of what I like about it, though. I don't like to come up with names too early on.
Actually, like, I've had the idea of doing an art exhibition for most of my adult life, but it's always just based on titles. Like, I'm not like, a visual artist at all, but it's literally just puns and gags, and that would be like, silly stuff that you would bring, and people like would basically be based off the names of the pieces and stuff like that. But I've never pulled the trigger, but maybe one day.
I think you should, because I think half of what makes art fun is the title, because it's either very accurately related to whatever you're looking at, or it's so obscure that you kind of are, as a viewer, maybe sitting there trying to kind of like conceptually blend the two, like what is this piece and what is this title and how do they make sense, you know?
It's kind of like a Fall Out Boy song title.
Or a Death Cab song, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're just like, how do these two things relate to each other?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the poppy sound of Grimes' Oblivion versus the lyrics. It's like it doesn't make sense, but it also does.
So you find a lot of fun in that. You are trained though, right? You went to, well, as you say, you went to varsity. Where did you go?
So I went to Vega School of Brand Leadership. My decision to go there was not to become an illustrator or even a designer. I really wanted to be an art director when I first applied, because at that point I had no real experience into the atrocity that is the advertising industry. And I also had a lot of like people around me that I really looked up to who were art directors or who kind of were in these roles and these spaces and these agencies, and I kind of just wanted to be them. So that was my initial plan. And then, I kind of had to do graphic design because that is, you know, certainly in terms of the trajectory of getting to art director, it's a good space to be in. And then started realizing that I didn't really like coming up with like campaign work. I wouldn't say that I was bad at it, but it didn't really fill my cup. In fact, like a lot of like the sort of more obscure briefs in which that you can kind of tell that the lecturers are just like trying to find something to like give their students to do because, you know, the main syllabus, I suppose, it hasn't been covered. That's kind of where I felt like I was really exploring a side of my brain that really excited me.
So instead of being an art director, you started becoming more of an artist.
Yeah, you could say that. Exactly. And like I definitely started incorporating a lot more art and illustration into my graphic design work as I got into like third year and sort of closing off my last year at Vega. Yeah, I definitely tried to incorporate more illustration work alongside the graphic design work, just because, just, you know, that those like compulsory projects were kind of boring for me looking back. Like I think I did have fun, but it's certainly not what I really want to do now.
I mean, I have had so many friends go to Vega, and while like some of them have utilized the skills that they learned there, most of them actually aren't even in advertising anymore, or like they did it for a little bit, and it's just they're because like that's the thing. If you've got some sort of artistic skills and merits, you want to also have some sort of stability in your life, and so advertising, I think, seems like a path for that. But I do think the hollowness of it and the vapidness of it gets to a lot of people, especially creative people. But some people are also more cut out for it. You know, they enjoy that kind of thing. So it is about finding how to express your creativity. Although personally, like, I do hate that my friends work in advertising. I'm always just like, I want to post that Bill Hicks thing where he's like, if you work in advertising, kill yourself. But it's like very problematic at this point in like the world. And also just, and it's just like, I get it. You guys are just trying to, you know, put food on the table. So it's,
for sure.
It's one of those
and like
things.
also, I also get like advertising can pay really well, you know. I'm not saying it necessarily does, but it can. And I think that's great. And like, you know, some amazing things have been made in agencies, but it's not quite suited to my personality. I'm also not like a big agency kind of person. I've interned at a few of them now, or like in my time at Vega, I would do internships and holidays and stuff. But I've never worked at a big agency. My last agency, we were 3 people, and it's just because I don't like feeling overwhelmed by lots of people, which is something that I just struggle with in general. But also, I like knowing the people that I work with. Like, not to say that we have to be best friends, but you know, I like connecting with my colleagues, and that's an important part of me being able to enjoy my work, is that there is some kind of like familial environment, you know. And I don't think that I got that when I interned at advertising agencies, and it's just not something that I think could ever give me that feeling, you know.
Yeah, I get that. It's a lot of disconnect, I guess, when you're in a bigger agency. Whereas I do think, small agencies, I know like here in Durban, I mean, they grew into a big agency, but Disturbance was one where that cultivated a lot of good talents, like guys like Louis de Villiers. And that's, they actually pushed, Richard Hart, I think, started it. And they actually really pushed some really dope work. Oh, man, this is awkward. Just hold on 1 second.
Is that an alarm?
No, that's my girlfriend calling. I did tell her that I was busy, and I usually have my phone on mute.
It's got to happen, though. It's like sometimes you're the person who forgets to turn their phone off in the movie cinema.
Yeah, it's when I was on radio, that was the worst. Like, it's when you're on air and like one of the guests or something hasn't turned off their phone.
That's really awkward.
There's so many. Actually, I'll tell you the story. Like one of my first times on air, I froze and I actually just swore. I just said "fuck," and that went out. That was literally like my first day. One of the first things, because the guy who I was doing it with was like, "Yo, I'm gonna say this, then I'm gonna throw it to you, and you say this." But then he said the thing that he was gonna throw to me. And then I froze.
Oh shit! So he fucked up, actually.
Yeah, but I also like it was one of those things where it's just like such a rookie moment. It was like I am not like as cool or suave as I thought I was. Like I thought I'd be able to handle that kind of situation.
Yeah.
Oh man, where were we? Do you know?
We were talking about advertising.
We were talking about advertising.
Well, how like that was initially my plan, and then things changed, and I'm so grateful that they did.
But you still work with brands from time to time, like, but you're not necessarily like having to like be in an office coming up with everything that's needed.
Exactly. Like in my last agency, so we were specifically a design studio. So we would get briefs sometimes to do collateral through an agency for a client, but we were never actually in charge of coming up with campaigns or like those kinds of like, above the line concept, which is exactly what I needed in that time of my life. Like I just couldn't actually be around, or I didn't really enjoy anymore working in that kind of space of like having to come up with campaigns, having to like conceptualize shoots, having to come up with like payoff lines and then like the artwork that goes for it. It's just like there's a whole like sort of system involved. And I think there are people who are incredibly great at doing that, but that's just not me. That's not how my brain actually works. So yeah, working and specializing more on the design side is exactly, I think, where I'm able to actually add the most value,
You mentioned actually that you quit your job earlier this year, right? What went behind that?
So not wanting to get into too much trouble, I just wasn't having a great time anymore. It was one of those
times, having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, like if you were following me on Twitter, you would know that. But I did give the gory details sometimes. But genuinely, I think it was one of those things where my time was coming up in that space, and I was kind of trying to hold on for a little bit too long, perhaps because I was scared to resign or to leave. Because I mean, it is just scary, and I didn't have a plan to follow it up on.
Yeah. What were your fears, if you don't mind sharing?
I mean, so at the time, so this was 3 months ago, we were in the pandemic. I had no sort of sustainable freelance work or sort of like ongoing as much as, a good, what is the word I'm looking for? Like a steady salary. Yeah, exactly. Like a steady salary could provide me. So like freelance work was great and I could take on what I wanted and like it was extra cash and it was always fun, but it wasn't necessarily that freelance. I mean, it's kind of a bit of everything though. Like there were times when it felt like my freelance was paying more than my job, which a lot of the time it was. But then it was also like, I didn't have so much freelance that I could do that full time. But then I also just wasn't having a great time at work anymore. I just kind of was outgrowing that space. And so eventually I decided to put my mental health first and actually just take the plunge and figure it out. And I had savings and I have a good support system. So I was just like, I thought to myself, I can make it work. Like if something shitty happens, there's something I can't handle. But what I definitely couldn't handle at the time was actually continuing in that job just because it wasn't working for me anymore.
Yeah, I think a lot of us go through that thing. Like when you just know that this isn't going to get you closer to where you want to be in life, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I don't want to be stuck here or like for another year and be like, wow, I really should have quit a year ago. And it's also not to say that, my colleagues also weren't aware of the fact that I wasn't having a good time. I think it was just like I was bringing myself down by denying myself the freedom to just like leave. But then I also think to some degree, I wasn't doing them any favors either because I wasn't having a good time. And I think that also reflected in my work.
Yeah. And
And
you also might be bringing the mood down a little. I know I've been
yeah,
someone who's probably brought the team morale down when I've worked
for
in
sure,
offices.
for
The
sure.
rare times that I've worked in offices, I've definitely not been the model employee. So I've learned for myself, like I work very, very well like on my own, but then also in small teams. Most of the work I do is with, yeah, like you were saying earlier, people that you know and get along with to a degree. You don't necessarily have to be friends, but you get each other. And so
Yeah,
I've over the years more and more found myself in those spaces. And then also, yeah, those kind of people hit me up when they need work. So it's dope. I've
exactly.
somehow managed to survive through all of this, but like, yeah, I've been freelance for fucking years and years now, and it's always like 1 month you get like tons, you're like good, and
Yeah,
that's when you're like a squirrel. That's when you just go, you know what? I'm putting this all away. I'm gonna buy myself one nice little thing here because I don't know about next month. And then if
yeah.
next month is good, then you're like, okay, cool, we're doing okay. I can buy myself another nice little thing, and just
Exactly. And it's
until
kind
you
of you
can't.
sort of like slowly working. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think that's also the thing. It's like, when I did eventually decide to leave, it was like, okay, what's the fucking plan? Because I didn't have a fucking plan. But I think that's part of what kind of excited me a little bit about taking that
Yeah.
plunge was just that like I had to figure it out. I didn't have a choice. Whereas, if I'd stayed in my job, I could have just like coasted by, would have gotten a salary, but I would have been really unhappy. Whereas now, like, I feel quite alive, actually.
Because you've got like the possibilities are endless now. It really is an open book, but that's also scary, like to a large degree, because you're like it's all on you now. It's not like yeah, it's like
Yeah,
when you actually go for your dreams, or you actually start like pushing towards yeah, not being in the corporate environment or not having that safety net anymore. It like that's the thing. You start doing more and you start doing cool stuff almost because it's like you have to.
yeah,
There's no choice in the matter anymore. It's like you've got to eat, so you've got to find work to do. You've got to find people to work with, or like I'm sure you're probably thinking about an exhibition at the moment, or am I wrong there?
that is something that's been on my mind actually for a good amount of time now. Just because I made a promise to myself in 2016 when I did a debut exhibition at Wolves in Ilovo that I would have an exhibition every year, and that kind of stopped happening from last year. I mean, last year I did participate in a few group exhibitions, but I haven't done a solo one in a while. So that is something that I'm kind of trying to figure out. But it's also just like, I forget sometimes that like when you want to commit to an exhibition, you have to like really sit down and think about an entire body of work. And
Yeah.
that's really daunting. And I'm really good at procrastinating. So watch the space, I guess.
Yeah. So so I was gonna actually ask what's the difference between solo versus group exhibitions for you, but I assume so with a solo exhibition, are you really trying to conceptualize the whole thing, or you're not going with I've got some of this, I've got some of that, what else can I put with that?
So based on my two solo exhibitions, it was a case of like I didn't want everything to feel like they were copy pastes of each other or that it was maybe too similar. But I did want to have some kind of general feeling that you could get across the pieces. So whether that be a specific character that I'm drawing in different scenarios, or whether and that's quite true to my last solo exhibition, like the titles are like kind of fucked up and weird and the color palette's the same, but like, and there are similarities just because, I'm the person drawing it, but I don't like to feel like everything has to be part of like a recipe book, but I do want it to feel like it is some part of some broader family, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah, some sort of coherent thread between everything, but each piece speaks for itself, and each piece can stand on its own.
Exactly. Like they're not, exactly, like you wouldn't necessarily buy two different pieces and put them together as a diptych. It would just be because they maybe both spoke to you in different ways. That's kind of my approach, but it's also really hard because like I have a character that I draw, and he's like become this character that I draw, and he was the character that I started doodling back in class in first year. And there are limitations to what he can and can't do, at least in my mind. So it becomes quite interesting to like, draw this character and this like sort of phantom cat situation, and like try and reimagine ways to represent this thing without feeling like I'm almost copying myself, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So it's quite, I think that's also kind of what holds me back sometimes, or like what makes illustrating feel a bit like a challenge, but also obviously a good challenge. But it's like, how do I take something that some people may know me for, and something that I put out there a lot, and come up with new ways to represent the same thing?
And at the same time, you also don't want to betray the character, I assume.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, I want you to know that that's him, but it's also like, yeah, I don't want you to have to scroll through my feed and just see the same shit all the time.
Like just with that character though, it's making me think kind of like comic books in a way, like, when characters are defined, but they're also constantly different, they're constantly growing, evolving, but it's, you can't make the character do something completely untoward to what the character has been set up as, almost.
Exactly. Yeah. So it is trying to find that balance of like new ways to represent the same thing.
I take it music's a big part of your work, just judging by the fact that you've done multiple covers. I know you did Mixed Blouse's cover, and I know you've done Diamond Thug's cover, and then some of your work's also related to, I know there's one piece that was that came from a Talking Head song. So I assume music's a big part of your creative process.
It definitely is. I think and it's actually something that I used to get a little bit into trouble with at my last job, where like I would listen to a lot of like lyric based music, which is just I liked singing along to things, and also a lot of podcasts. And, sometimes it would sometimes distract me too much from the work at hand. And then I would like make a lot of silly mistakes. But it really, really is. And I think, and that's actually something that I have been trying to conceptualize recently, but it's been something on my mind for about a year now. Like, and it's not an original thought, but like I want to kind of create a body of work where pieces are inspired by like some of my favorite lyrics from different songs. And as cheesy as that may sound, and again, it's not particularly original in and of itself, but it's just like there are certain lyrics that really move me, and I want my illustrations to move people in those same ways, like whether it's like a deeply emotional, or it's dark, or it's funny. But yeah, like so with This Must Be the Place, that was actually the title of the exhibition itself. Just because that song and that particular time in my life was really relevant to what I was going through. I had just moved back to Joburg from Cape Town, just finished studying. I was kind of feeling a bit all over the place. And, the idea of home and identity was something that was quite on my mind over those last 2 years. So that song just felt quite accurate, and it felt good and right to kind of have an exhibition that, it kind of touched on that song because of what it made me feel. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. For example, one of my favorite lyrics is by Arcade Fire, because they're the fucking bomb. It's Sprawl 2. And the lyric is, I need the darkness, someone please cut the lights. And there's just something about that, and the way that lyric is delivered, that like really just makes me feel something. I don't know what that is, but it's something quite visceral. And so, yeah, I'm trying to figure out ways to. Exactly.
Because they're on stage, cut the lights, so they don't want the fame anymore. And then also just the personal side.
Yeah, exactly. So music is really important to my work, not even just in ways of referencing music, but just because it does help me feel more creative, like I can kind of tune out of work for a second because I've hit a wall, and I can listen to a great song and feel a bit more pumped. And then being able to actually work in music alongside musicians has been honestly incredible.
Yeah. Well, I know you and Sandy are friends, so I'll first ask, how did Diamond Thug and you get involved with each other?
So Diamond Thug, back in 2017, they posted an Instagram story like calling out to artists, saying that they wanted someone to get involved in their debut album artwork. And so I had been following them and their music for a while. I was a big fan. And I DM'd them and I'd said, like, pick me, choose me, love me. And so we kind of got chatting, and then, I sent them a few things, and they were like, oh, we don't know if you're like quite the right style for the cover, but like we do also want to do like a lyric book, and we'll get like a bunch of artists to like contribute artworks for specific songs. Would you be keen to just do something more along those lines? And I was like, literally anything. I love you guys so much. And then it kind of just turned into me doing everything, like me actually taking over and ended up doing the cover of the album alongside artworks for all 13 songs. So it was just a case of me actually reaching out, because I don't know what compelled me. I'm not the kind of person who puts herself out there a lot, but something in me that day just said, reply to this Instagram story. And then here we have this entire collection of artworks and a vinyl and merch to show for it.
And it's quite different to your current style, or the style that I know you for, at least.
Yeah.
So you were obviously working with them. You guys were talking, because as you said, they were like, oh, not necessarily our style, but then you came up with something for them. How did that come about? Yeah,
so that was kind of just like once we kind of realized we were actually on this trajectory of me being the sole person to work on it. We spoke a lot about, I was kind of like asking them a bunch of questions about what inspired the album. Were there visuals that they kind of already saw in their heads when it came to the individual songs? And they didn't really actually have a lot to say. They kind of gave me a lot of creative freedom, but they did, the one thing that Chantel Venti, the lead singer, did say was that she saw a lot of hands in the songs, in that, like, because the whole album, calling it a pastron, is that, these two stars or orbs kind of like at their furthest from each other in their orbit. So it had a lot to do with connection, and not necessarily two lovers, but just two people finding their way to each other and from each other. And so I like the idea of using hands to kind of demonstrate that. And yeah, just kind of, I actually don't even know how it came about, but suddenly I was just drawing a fuck ton of hands. And hands are so difficult to draw, Bob. Jesus Christ.
I've heard.
It's actually my worst. And again, I'm not a realistic illustrator. That's not really what I do. If someone asks me for a portrait, I will send them somewhere else. But I think because with hands, they also feel quite removed from a physical body, it was a little bit less daunting to kind of take a whole new style on. But it was just really fun. And also at that stage in my life, in my career, I was very, very, very into and religiously working in acrylic ink and paintbrushes. Whereas now I'm more like a fan of pens on paper. And then every now and then I'll do stuff digitally. But I was at a stage when I was like adamantly using those materials, and they lent themselves really well to the things that I was drawing. And then, yeah, it was kind of like there wasn't ever really anything that they hated. Pretty much everything that's available now to view is what I came up with, and they were like, sick, let's go.
Awesome. And then with Sandy, with Mixed Blouse's Elementality album, how did that come about?
So Sandy, obviously, we are friends, and I was contacted by Binway from Baby Mogul, and she obviously represents both of us. And yeah, it was one day just like, this is what's happening. Sandy's releasing an EP, give us a casting, and like, can we get on this as soon as possible? And I did not, in no world did saying no to that project occur to me, just because I think Sandy is such a force in what they do. And I also because I only ever worked on one, or like worked with Diamond Thug, I worked on a few, aside from Passion, I worked on a few singles for them, single artworks. But I'd never worked on music in Sandy's specific style, you know? So that was also quite interesting to me to kind of, for my challenge was to match their approach to music and that like quieto funk, synth, poppy aesthetic, so to speak. So it was, I think part of it was me just actually wanting to challenge myself in a genre of music that I don't necessarily listen to all the time.
Okay, so what I got from the piece was that it was like very 90s like inspired. Am I wrong there?
No, not at all, not at all. And actually, this is what makes it so interesting being an illustrator, is that like sometimes I don't always overly conceptualize. Exactly. I don't always overly conceptualize what I'm trying to do, or I'm not trying to force a specific kind of story or feeling on someone. But it's always so interesting when I get feedback and people say these things like, oh, you know, kind of a 90s vibe. And it's like, you're right. Like there is, but that wasn't actually why I did that. It was just like, I just wanted something that felt really fun. But I suppose it is one of those things that obviously one's influences do consciously or subconsciously inform what you make.
Yeah, for me it was just like a throwback to like Island style, like baggies, like back in the day kind of thing, or like just that, like just that beachy, colorful summer kind of vibe, you know?
Yeah, and also like Sandy's kind of explanation of the story that was being told in the music was very much like, you know, just people wanting to connect similarly to the Diamond thing actually. And you will see kind of in the work that I produced for Sandy, there were hands, yeah. But obviously in a much more style. But yeah, exactly. Like people coming together and wanting to just have fun. I think also like in terms of my relationship with Sandy is like when we hang out and when we're out, we have so much fun. I wanted to kind of also embody that a little bit, that like, whether or not you know it, like we do also have an actual relationship outside of the work that we made together. And I wanted to kind of respect that in the work that I made, you know?
Do you listen to the music when you're creating those things? Like, did Diamond Thug send you stuff before you created it? And same with Sandy?
Yeah, they did. So with Diamond Thug, they sent me like a private SoundCloud link with all the songs, and I listened to that religiously. Like that was the only thing I listened to when I was working on
it's a good album, so
it's really fucking brilliant to begin, which made it obviously even more fun for me. But also it is about, you know, wanting to really to maintain the integrity of the song. I think it is important to have access to that, to like, you know, try and embody those feelings in the artwork itself. But however, with Sandy, I had no music to work off of.
Ooh.
I had the brief. I had a few references, and that was kind of it. And it was just like me putting forward ideas and see what kind of stuck. But again, also that wasn't a particularly difficult process. I think because I understand Sandy as a person, it was quite easy to kind of gauge their vibe and what they were actually looking for. But yeah, with Sandy, I didn't actually have any music to work with.
Do you feel nervous like when you work on these kind of projects? Because like a band or a musician's first album, especially like considering Diamond Thug and Sandy have had, like, it's not like, you know, they're nobodies that are coming with first albums. Like these are anticipated first albums. These are first albums that, you know, like the media and everyone cares about and is going to listen to and is going to look at. So did that ever pop in your mind that you're going to be a part of something that could be historic?
It has. And I think that's part of why I took them on, because it was this exciting, like, you know, I believe in these musicians and in the music, and why wouldn't I want to be a part of, you know, that kind of journey with them?
Yeah.
But it is really fucking nerve-wracking, I'll tell you that much. It's like imposter syndrome is mad, and it's just like, you know, obviously I have to keep reminding myself, like, if the client likes it, that's all that really matters, because if it does what they needed to do, then I've done a good job.
That's a valuable lesson.
Thing of like, yeah, but I have to consistently remind myself of that, and I forget it a lot. And it's like, it's one of those things where suddenly, you know, we're launching, like with Diamond Thug specifically, we launched, or you know, they kind of like put the artwork out there before for pre-orders, and then we're working on like the vinyl artwork, and then it was just like people are sharing and commenting on it, and it's like obviously it was less about the work and more about the music, but for me it was about the work, you know, like I was like looking at people sharing my stuff and wondering what they thought about it. And I mean, I haven't actually seen any negative feedback about it, but I wasn't actually looking for feedback in general. I was just like having panic attacks on my side, like what are people thinking about? Like it's so scary to put yourself out there, especially when it feels like it's out of your control at that point. Like now this thing's on Spotify and it's on iTunes and it's on SoundCloud, and they have full control over where and when they share this work. Whereas if I'm responsible for putting myself out there, then, you know, I feel a bit more in control of how people see it. So it's really, really daunting, but
yeah, because the thing with the album cover is like it could be there forever. Like, you know, it's like Rolling Stone top 100 albums kind of stuff, you know, and you're like you know, that's the thing. It's like, do you have a history with album art? Like, have you, like, when you were doing, even before this, were you a fan of it, or was it through working with Diamond Thug that you were like, album art's a way that I can express myself as well? Because it is something that for myself, like, I've been fascinated with, like, my whole life, you know. It's like, it's the first thing you see when it comes to music. Like I still remember all of Rage Against the Machine.
I mean, like, great album art. I definitely would say that it's been something that's really piqued my interest from a young age. I think, I mean, even going back to when I got the Dido CD when I was a kid, like it was just so cool opening up the little booklet that comes in the front of the CD and like seeing all the lyrics and like seeing like behind the scenes, like photos of her recording. And then like from there moving on to, you know, just like more kind of like the indie bands that I then got into in like high school, and just like how cool the artwork was. Just like, I think, and also I think part of it was potentially when I watched Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist for the first time, and when Nick was making really sad breakup CDs, Road to Closure, for his ex, and like just seeing how kind of fun it looked that he was just taking a Koki to a blank CD and just like drawing shit on it. And it kind of became this thing between me and my friends, like making each other mix CDs, making album artwork. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I could have ever envisioned myself doing that at like 16 years old, but it's so much fun for me, and it is something that I want to do more of for sure.
And it's awesome that at least you know, with Diamond Thug, you get to make actual booklets, where these days so many kids don't even know about like liner notes. They don't know about like all the little jokes that would be in, like you would I mean, I would pirate music, fucked, but I would still buy the CD because it had the booklet, you know, because it had the lyrics, because it had all these cool little illustrations, little jokes, little thank yous and stuff like that. Man, that was
so fucking
some
cool.
of the most fun.
Exactly. I also remember like when I bought the My Chemical Romance Welcome to the Black Parade CD, they also had like a whole like pull-out booklet, and that, you know, I'm not actually sure who illustrated their album artwork. I should probably find out, but like it was just so cool to kind of see how
Academy, isn't it?
It might very well be. It might. Actually, I can't say that. I should doubt though. But no. But then it was just so cool to also see how that artwork extended into something as trivial, so to speak, as a little CD booklet. You know, I think it's so great that like when CDs were really, really a thing, how people took all those like smaller elements really seriously, and that they were all just ways to communicate cool ideas and the cool concept and the band itself, you know?
Okay, well, I guess that can bring us to the modern era, I guess, where stuff is more online. And how do you navigate that, where there's so many people competing, essentially? You know, like Instagram is awash with millions of designers, illustrators, etc. And so much work these days becomes about just, you know, putting something cool on Instagram, getting the likes, and sometimes you get hired off of that, sometimes you don't. So where are you within this digital realm?
So over the last 2 weeks specifically, I've set myself a challenge to actually start uploading more of my work on Behance specifically, because I think that's a great platform for, like obviously with Behance, it's kind of like if LinkedIn and Instagram had a kid, because like you kind of get the sort of currency of it, so to speak, in that, you get the views, you get the likes, but then it is also a way to get hired and just also be appreciated for what you do. So I'm not very good at that. I never really have been. And over the last 2 weeks, I've tried to set myself a challenge to upload one project to Behance, and that, crossing that threshold would make posting more projects a lot easier, because I have a shit ton of work that no one's ever fucking seen. And so I did that last week with my work with the garment that I made with Levi's at House of Strauss. But it is really nerve-wracking, and it does often feel like a competition, because we kind of equate likes to validation.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I feel like I've got a really solid group of friends who hype my shit up all the time, to the point where actually sometimes it's a bit annoying. Like, Mom, stop! Like, don't say that. And for me, that's kind of all I really need. Like that makes me feel good when my friends like my stuff, and I trust them enough to tell me if they think something shit or like doesn't make sense or isn't to their taste. So yeah, it is a bit scary, but I've also had to remind myself that, because I have a lot of friends who are in the creative industry, who are designers and or illustrators and or, XYZ. And I've kind of had to remind myself that like them scoring a really cool job does not mean that like I'm never going to get a cool job again. Like a win for them isn't a loss for me.
Yeah, I need to like work on this. I work on it a lot, but I still like, like when I see all my mates on the Savannah comedy thing, and I'm just like, okay, one day,
Yeah.
but probably not gonna happen. I speak too much shit about like too much that it definitely lands up biting me in the ass. But it's fine. I'll put on my own things. I don't need nobody else.
Yeah, exactly. And it's difficult to remember that though, because it's like, you want to be working on cool things, and it's like it's awesome when you see your mutuals or your friends doing cool things, but like you can't necessarily help but think like, but what about me? Like I would have been great for that job too. But it really is just about having faith that like it didn't land in your lap because you weren't quite right for the job, and something will land in your lap that wasn't quite right for the other person, So it's tricky, especially as a freelancer. Obviously you want work because you want to survive. But ultimately, when I do have free time, because I don't have a whole lot of work going on, for me, that's kind of when I'm like, okay, cool. So let's rethink, like, when are we doing an exhibition? Like, when are we doing t-shirts? Why don't we do prints? So I think it's good to sometimes go through pauses in your work life where you really have to kind of sit and think like, what's the plan? Like, how am I going to put myself out there? How am I going to upskill, which is something that I'm only getting really into now. I think we're like taking more seriously now that like I am working for myself. But yeah, it's terrifying. Let me tell you, it's fucking terrifying. I spent the entire day planning one Instagram post with the jacket that I'd done, because I was like overthinking the caption and the hashtags and like what time should I post it? And it's like it ate away at my sanity for so long that eventually I was just like, literally fuck this, just press send. And then I did, and it was received really well, and I kind of knew that it would be because I wanted to post about it. I did like it, but it's terrifying.
I get that almost every week with these podcasts. It's always like just through the editing, through the writing, the stuff, through the tweets, through the everything. It's just like, are people going to think this is shit? And it's just like, no, people enjoy it. People like it. That's why, there's constant, I get lots of people hitting me up and being like, yo, I really enjoyed that. Yo, I really enjoyed that. It's cool to see you doing this. But you're still just single time. It's just like, are they gonna like it? Please like me, please.
I know, like exactly that desperation to feel liked and feel validated in what you do. But it's also like, and I was talking about this to my therapist, where she was just like, who the fuck cares? Like, so what if someone doesn't like it? You like it, don't you? And it gets you work. So like, why the anxiety? And obviously, like, we all know why, because we want to feel reassured. But it's good to sometimes kind of like just step out of that and be like, if you don't fucking like it, then like don't like it. Like I didn't make it for you. So bye.
Yeah. I was going to say just now that like people who listen to the podcast know I've gone through a little Alan Watts phase through this lockdown. And one of the things he says is that you invariably get what you want. And what I think he means by that is that you essentially push towards the stuff that you really want. Like the reason why I don't have the Savannah job is because I don't actually want the Savannah job. If I did, I would fucking apply for it. You know, like I would curate myself into the person who would get that. And so, yeah, you invariably go towards the stuff that actually suits you and the people who do love you and do like you and do support you. It's just, I know a lot of the times, and especially like when you're freelance, and especially during a pandemic where we're alone a lot, I find that loneliness can really, get to me, and it can make me really feel like, you know, people aren't on my side. And then there's just all that doubt, and then that and you start, it's because it's the stuff that you don't like. Well, for me at least, it's the stuff that I don't like about myself that I think other people won't like about me. And then, it just spirals.
For sure. Yeah. Anxiety, be real. It's terrifying every day for multiple reasons. But I also can't imagine being in any other industry. Like there's nothing else I would want to do. And it's not because, you know, I mean, for argument's sake, I could have been a marine biologist, which is something that when I was in grade 9 was very serious about doing. But there's really nothing else in this world that I'd want to be anxious about than design and illustration, you know?
Oh, that is a very good way to put it. So I think I'm going to use that going forward, just with everything, because the creative stuff in general, I think, is just asking for anxiety. I don't know any creative field where it isn't just people being riddled with self-doubt and riddled with those insecurities. But at the same time, I do think a part of it, like I do think it helps. I do think it creates better work. I do think you doubting yourself does make your work better. Like not just you, but people in general.
Absolutely.
You know,
I think it does humble you, and I think it is good to, at least to a certain extent, I think it is good to worry about what people will think and if it will be well received, because it means that you give a shit. And
it's also part of the thing, as much as you're trying to do stuff for yourself, you are trying to create something that other people enjoy as well. That is sometimes the end result, you know, like that you want. You're going, world, here's something. I hope you like it. Like you want to bring joy. You want to bring something to their lives. And it would suck that if you spend all the time creating something and it just doesn't, you know, like it doesn't resonate with people.
Exactly. And like, so kind of on that topic, it's kind of like in, when was it, 2016 maybe? There was, it had to do with, I think it was like Superbalist meets, was it daisies or sowing the seeds? There was some kind of like activation that was happening where they had a tattoo roulette, and which I know sounds like a terrible fucking idea. And we were approached, or I was approached by a friend to be like, can you do like 1 or 2 pieces of flash to put on the tattoo roulette? Yeah, which is pretty fucking cool, because I was like, I mean, sick, but also like I had just joined the workforce in 2016. I was so young. I just graduated. At that point, I couldn't have called myself an illustrator. I was at that point really just doodling, but doing like committing my thoughts and my work to graphic design. So I did one little dude who is my cat character on a skateboard, and I submitted that. And I mean, obviously, you know, the concept roulette, you kind of land on something and then you have to get it. But obviously, they didn't want to make it so that people couldn't back out of a tattoo they didn't like. But it was cool to watch via Instagram stories that people were actually picking my guy to be tattooed on them. And in fact, 2 of my friends got matching tattoos of him in the same place. And so it is one of those things where it's like, will this be well received? I don't fucking know. Either way, someone wants this on their body. Like, you know, that I didn't make that decision. I certainly didn't coax them into that. And I think it is a thing of just accepting that, like I do want people to like my stuff, and you want people to like your podcast. And that's just the inherent human condition to want acceptance, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's also the thing is, if you're going to, like, if you do put enough time into stuff, and if you do put enough effort into it, other people will enjoy it. It might not be millions, but you are going to get that thing that you're looking for. You just got to put stuff out there, essentially.
Exactly. And it is about, I mean, I don't know if I'm certainly not a tattoo artist, but
would you ever go down that path?
I think if someone saw something, if someone saw something that I liked, I think if someone saw something that I made that they liked, and they like approached me and asked me to, you know, either pay for the artwork to be tattooed or like just ask for my permission, I definitely would. But I don't know how likely it is that I would actually go out of my way to design a tattoo, just because I don't know, I think there are so many fucking cool tattoo artists out there, and I don't want to step on anyone's toes, you know. Also, because like the way I draw isn't for tattoo, so that would have to be, you know, kind of reimagined to some degree. But yeah, I mean, if someone was like, I really dig this one thing you did, would you mind me getting it tattooed? I would say yes, but I don't think I would like go out of my way to actually design one.
And you're not someone who's like going to get like pins and needles and start hand poking your friends.
Definitely not, because I have so much anxiety that I have the shakes sometimes. Like, I think that's a terrible fucking idea. I also don't want to poke my friends. Like, that's just, I like get anxiety having to like get blood tests. So that's just like really not my vibe. And also, like, as much as I really admire a lot of tattoos, I'm just not the kind of person to get one. But I think for that same reason, that like the idea of a needle and pain just don't mesh well with me in my brain.
It's a weird fucking thing that we do. I haven't had one in a while, but I'm covered in them because my friend's a tattoo artist. They're all on my legs. Yeah, no, my friend Luke Smith, he basically, we used to tattoo me in his bedroom. So I've got a lot of tattoos on my legs that were basically him just practicing. And I'm cool with a lot of them. Like, if you look at Luke's work now, his stuff is amazing. So I'm grateful that I managed to contribute a little bit to that.
But his little guinea pig.
Essentially, me, Mitch Harper as well was one of his guinea pigs. There were a few of us that were just, but that's also the thing. Like, I dig tattoos. I've always wanted to get them, and he did my first ones on the inside of my feet, which was definitely an experience.
Wow.
That
sounds painful as fuck.
That's been definitely the worst, like, that I've had. And then I've done basically the rest of my left leg and a bit of my right, and then some of my arms and stuff. And like, without a doubt, the inside of your heel is not a place you should get tattooed.
Probably not. I mean, I just, the sound of that is making my feet tingle a little bit. I'm like, that sounds so sore.
Yeah, the one got infected because I went to like Boxing Day test match and slops like afterwards. So it was all just, every part of it was just a bad idea. But that's the ignorance of youth, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose. And now, like, whatever, it's a vibe.
Yeah, that's the thing. For me, tattoos are really not like a thing. It's a cool way to express yourself, but if you got shit tattoos, whatever. It's like, good tattoos are it's an endowment of the artist. It's not like a thing of you. So you're the one who has to walk around with it. And I know all of us who have tattoos have things that we hate about them. But at the same time, you also just get so many that you don't care anymore. It's just like, oh, there's a shit one. Oh, there's a good one.
I think that's something that I kind of like thought about when I was like younger, and we, you know, me and my friends were like, oh, you know, like we should get tattoos one day kind of thing. And it's this whole thing of like, I suppose if you've never had one, you do maybe tend to overthink what that first one will be or what they will be. And it's like, it's actually not that deep, guys. No one cares.
Yeah, especially at this point. I mean, I do get some people looking at me a bit weird sometimes, and like people will come up to you and just grab your arm and like look at your tattoos or like strike up conversation. So it's a weird thing in that regard. Oof. And I know Paige sometimes has awkward like vibes as well, because she's got like a pretty big one on her arm, and like so that's the problem. Is you can definitely still get some people who are like, ooh, what's that? But it's no longer that thing of like, ooh, you're scummy. Which is really cool.
Exactly. It's kind of been more normalized. It's also like, don't touch me in a pandemic, please. Jesus.
Just in general.
And then in general.
Cool. I think that brings us to the end here. This has been really fun and informative. And yeah, like what's your vibe going forward? You are on the freelance page and you say you're looking towards doing an exhibition and that. So yeah, what's the actual plan?
So first things first, I am moving to Cape Town in
As anyone
December.
who follows you on Twitter would know.
Yes, exactly. So that is the plan. About to basically submit the application and hopefully secure that deposit this week. So that's kind of the biggest thing going on in my life and on my mind at this point. But yeah, I need to actually really crack down on what this exhibition is going to be. I have started like kind of plotting out a few like pieces to the different illustrations or to the different lyrics that I like. But it is really about at this point, and similarly to me just like taking the plunge and posting something on Behance, it's like I actually just have to like start this process and it like becomes less daunting. And then I also, you kind of realize like, oh, it wasn't that bad. So yeah, that's kind of in terms of like creative endeavors that are outside of what just pays the bills. That is something that I really, really want to commit some time to.
I know you were talking about procrastination earlier, and that is the one thing that like I have to constantly remind myself is I'm probably going to enjoy the thing I'm putting off. Especially when it comes to writing.
It's not that bad. Like it's not going to take as long as you think. It's not going to be as shit as you think. And this is exactly why I'm on Concerta, because actually I do have ADHD. So
fair enough. And Cape Town, why are you going to Cape Town? Why, like, Joburg seems like it's treated you well and it seems like a wonderful space. Like, I mean, I come there and I love it. And I'm not the biggest fan of Cape Town. So why are you heading that way?
So just to clarify, I fucking love Joburg. I will never not love Joburg. There's nothing wrong with Joburg. I'm not running away from anything. It's just that essentially I had a plan for this year. I had two big plans for this year. One was to quit my job, which I did. And the second one was to move to Hong Kong. But I can't really do that in a pandemic. And also I have my issues with the CCP. So that's not quite the plan for right now. But I do still need some kind of change of scenery because I think I will go fucking crazy otherwise. And, it's exactly how I felt before I moved to Cape Town to go to school, was that like, I was just feeling antsy and I felt a little bit trapped and like, I'd kind of outgrown Joburg at that time in my life. And then I left and then I came back and then I've had the best 4 years back home. And I'm kind of feeling that way again now, where I just think I need something new. Not that Cape Town's particularly new, like I have lived there before, but certainly not in my late 20s. So I think it'll just be a fun adventure.
And you'll be spending less time on Long Street.
I'll be spending no time on fucking Long Street. I will definitely. Exactly. I think now, because I also, when I was 19, 20, 21, I really wanted the acceptance of like the cool people in Cape Town. Whereas now I literally don't give a shit. I just want to go because I think it'll be a nice change of scenery. I've got some really cool friends that have moved there in the last year or so. And yeah, I just want to do my own thing in a new space, but not feel like I have to prove anything to the scene.
Amen to that. Cool. That brings us to the end there. Thank you so much for your time. This has been a really fun chat. I'm definitely not going to listen back to this at any time soon. I think this has probably been the most boring interview, and I've listened to so many of yours in the last week or so in preparation. But oh wow, why do you think this was boring? Self-loathing, dude. Fair enough. Okay, I was just like, maybe, like, I was like, wait, is there anything she's hiding? Like, is there like some like deep dark secrets that I didn't uncover? But no, this has been fun. This is like, I think it showcases your personality. We got into a lot of the work stuff, because that's the thing. This podcast is, part personality, part how the fuck do people do the things they do, Yeah, that's true. That is true. I want to give people actionable stuff, and you've given people a lot of actionable stuff, so thank you. Gee, thanks. That's so nice. Well, I have had the best time, so I hope that other people think the same way. They'll let you know by liking stuff on Instagram. But cool. We'll chat again soon. I hope you have a good rest of the day, and yeah, hope the Cape Town trip. Yeah, well, hope you get the lease and everything goes well. Yeah, me too. Good God, I hate looking for places. It's the worst. I've only ever done it once, so yeah, I'm quite blessed. Fair enough. Cool. Cheers, Thanks so much. Bye.